Right, in my last video I said I'd do something about my big dumb Panerai, and here it is. And I've included the Grand Seiko in this just as comparison, just to show you that the measurements that you get on a watch aren't the be-all and end-all for how big a watch appears or how big a watch wears. The Seiko on the left is 44mm in diameter, which is the same as the Panerai, if you ignore the carbuncle on the side, the crown guard. The Seiko is 50mm lug to lug, the Panerai is about 52mm lug to lug, and the Seiko is actually a hair thicker. I mean, never mind the NATO strap, the Seiko without the NATO strap is about a mil thicker than the Panerai. So they have very similar dimensions on paper, but wear, I think, slightly differently. The Seiko is much less likely to get people calling you a big watch prick. The Panerai, on the other hand, was the first of these big modern brands that popularised, I think, the rise of the big watch fad that we're all suffering through at the moment, and so can be indirectly perhaps blamed for everything from TW steel to the diesel Big Daddy, which is fair, I guess. The cap fits. But I think that the early simple Panerais, like the one that I've got, have a kind of simplicity that makes them very attractive watches. I should have really called this one, you know, the need for an anti-reflective coating, because both watches are buggers to film or get down. Sorry, where were I? Genuinely, this is my first drink of the day. The Panerai is correct. It's 11:35. It's 12:35, and well, here we go. Panerai was the first brand that I really liked. Back in about 2002, I bought myself an Omega Speedmaster reduced, the slightly smaller automatic version of the Moonwatch. I went to the shop with my wife, and we had a look at the proper Moonwatch and the reduced, and the Moonwatch was something like 60% more expensive. And I remember thinking at the time, I've got to pay more, and it doesn't wind itself. So I bought the reduced, and I owned the reduced for a year, and I sold it for pretty much what I bought it for, and I thought, well, maybe there's something in this. But the following year, in about 2003, I bought my first Panerai. This isn't it. My first Panerai was a titanium base, and I've always been drawn, I think, to the Luminors and the Luminor Marinas. So that's your basic cheap end of a very expensive range, cheap end of the Panerai range. So this is a Luminor Marina. It's a B series, so it was made in, I don't know, about 2000, 99, 2000, something like that. It's the first run of the Luminor Marinas with Luminor on the dial rather than tritium. You going to focus for me, camera? It's hand wound. The movement is a basic Unitas movement, and I'm not going to get into the trouble that Panerai have had in the past with their movements, putting on decorated Unitas in limited edition watches and charging an arm and a leg for. As someone said, there's no such thing as a stupid price for a watch. There's just a stupid customer who's prepared to pay that price. And I like the big basic Panerais. When I first got into Panerais, the catalogue was 30 pages long, and you had your Luminors, Luminor Marinas, you had your Radiamirs, you had your divers, your subs like the 24 and the 25, and you had the automatic ones, the 40mm automatics, and then the automatic chronos. There was like, the range was simple to understand. Now it feels like, I mean, more power to them. They're clearly doing well for themselves as a company. They've been super successful and popular with people who substitute owning objects for a personality. It's very easy to get into Panerais if you're prey to gear acquisition syndrome, because there's the straps and the buckles and there's all the things that go with it and the paraphernalia. But all of that, for me, I think dilute the basic attraction of a simple hand-wound Panerai, and this is that. This one in particular is a PAM4. So it's the PVD coating, which ran for about 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. Don't shoot me, I don't care. It with a steel back, so no display back on this particular model. Always worried about people who stress about display backs on tool watches. You've got a display front on a watch, you might as well have a display back if there's anything to look at. The crown guard, of course, is the most distinctive bit of the paraphernalia on the Panerai. It means that there's no screw-down crown. It means that the crown's pushed in when you've finished winding and held in place under pressure, giving it 300 meters water resistance, which is, you know, more than enough for most people. I've put it for the moment back on an original OEM strap and buckle, but yeah, again, I mean, look at that. You can't see a thing, can you? Surely the basic point of a watch is that you can tell the time on it. There you go. And I suffer from this gear acquisition a little bit, or at least I used to. I've got about 8 or 10 straps for this Panerai, which, you know, is probably the price of a decent mid-range watch or a nice Sin or something like that. There are nice straps out there. There are good fun things that you can do with straps. About 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I had a run of straps made from leather brought up from a ship called the Meta that sank in 1786. And it was discovered about 50 years ago, 45 years ago. The shipwreck, I mean. And on board the shipwreck were bales and bales of probably reindeer hide, probably tanned reindeer hide. And these bales had been strapped in really tight, so the water had only got to the outer, I don't know, 4 or 5 layers. And so this strap here is one of a set of about 20 that I had made from the reindeer hide. And it's the natural kind of tanning marks on it, those stripes there. And it smells absolutely fantastic, which is, you know, not a helpful thing to say on a YouTube video, is it? But I like having one in the stable. I like having it, and every time I wear it, I'm reminded just how nice it is. It's a simple, dumb watch. I mean, it doesn't do anything apart from tell the time. It sits quite nicely on the wrist. The straps articulate well in the lugs, because inside the strap here you've got these little metal tubes that hold it together with the bars in between the lugs rather than spring bars. So it's comfortable, it sits on my wrist nicely, it tells the time, and you get to wind it every morning and you get to kind of interact with it now and then. 95% of the people that you meet are simply not going to recognise the watch that you wear or not care. So people know that I'm a watch nerd, but very rarely do people comment on what I wear. And people who do know about watches may eye it and make a judgment about the person who wears it. I mean, that's what these watches are, aren't they? They're avatars for us, and they're things that we put out in the world that identify us or are a substitute for personality in some cases. But I like it. It's a nice watch. Not planning on selling it, unless someone offers me proper decent money for it, which is not going to happen anytime soon.